Imagine this, you're standing in the middle of a crowded party, dressed to perfection, feeling like the world is at your feet. Everyone's laughing, enjoying the moment, but then he walks in, the man you thought you knew. The one you loved, the one you trusted. He's surrounded by his friends, trying to impress them, showing off. And then, out of nowhere, he kicks you in front of everyone. You freeze, unable to believe what just happened. Your heart races, the room falls silent, and for a brief second, you can hear your breath echo in your ears. What kind of man does this? But here's the kicker. You're about to learn a shocking truth that will turn everything upside down. This story will shatter everything you thought you knew about betrayal, but you won't believe who's involved. It was supposed to be a regular Saturday night. I had planned on spending it with someone I thought I could trust. His name was Ethan, and he was the man I had been seeing for the past few months. From the outside, everything about our relationship seemed perfect. We went to nice restaurants, had deep conversations, and made future plans together. Ethan had it all: charm, good looks, and a way of making people feel like they were the most important person in the room. I, on the other hand, was just a regular woman with a few things going for me. I had a steady job, lived in a comfortable apartment, and had a small group of close friends. But unlike Ethan, I didn't care about showing off. I was content with the quiet life I had built for myself. That night, I had no reason to suspect anything would go wrong. Ethan invited me to a party, a high-end gathering with a group of his friends. I dressed up in my favorite black dress, simple but elegant, and made my way to the venue. It was one of those luxurious penthouse parties where everyone seems to know someone famous, and the champagne never stops flowing. As soon as we entered, Ethan was immediately surrounded by his friends, all of them laughing and joking like they were characters in a sitcom. I, on the other hand, found myself standing off to the side, scanning the room for familiar faces. I didn't mind the solitude. It was just another social gathering for me. I had been to a million like this before. But tonight something felt different. Maybe it was the way Ethan was acting, or maybe it was the way his friends looked at me as if I didn't quite belong. Still, I ignored the unease that crept up in my chest. After all, I had no reason to suspect anything out of the ordinary. I was chatting with a couple of other guests when I felt a sudden shove from behind. I turned around, and there he was, Ethan, laughing loudly as he stood there with a smug grin on his face. His friends were gathered around, egging him on. He grabbed my arm, pulling me forward, and before I could react, he kicked me hard in front of everyone. The laughter in the room died instantly. For a moment, I was frozen. My mind couldn't process what had just happened. Was this a joke? Was he playing some cruel prank? But no, his face was dead serious. His friends didn't seem shocked either. They just stood there watching, waiting for me to react. My stomach churned and my heart skipped a beat. I could feel my eyes burning with the sting of betrayal, and for a split second, everything around me felt like it was spinning. I didn't know what to do. Should I scream? Should I slap him in front of all these people? But I didn't do any of that. Instead, I stood there, glaring at him, feeling every ounce of rage bubble up inside me. How could he do this? Why would he do this? And that's when I felt it, a strange sense of clarity. Everything I thought I knew about him, everything I had built with him, was a lie. Have you ever had a moment when everything changed in an instant? Tell me about it in the comments. As the room around me buzzed with awkward murmurs and whispers, Ethan's smug expression only grew wider. He wasn't even sorry. It was like I was some joke to him, something to entertain his friends. But what really stung was how his friends didn't step in, didn't say a word. No one came to my defense. No one even seemed to care. I turned away, trying to hide the tears that threatened to fall, and walked toward the door. Ethan didn't try to stop me, didn't even look my way. But that's when I noticed something strange, something that didn't add up. As I stepped into the hallway, I saw a man standing by the elevator. He was tall, well-dressed, with a confident posture that screamed authority. He watched me for a moment, his eyes locking onto mine, and then he nodded as if recognizing me. I didn't recognize him, but his expression was one of quiet understanding. I shook my head, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my chest. What was it about tonight that felt so off? Why did it feel like something else was going on beneath the surface? That's when the phone call came. It was from an unknown number, but the voice on the other end sounded familiar. It was the man I had just seen by the elevator. "You don't know me," he said, his voice calm but firm, but you need to know something important about Ethan. It's time you learn the truth. I felt my heart race. What truth? What was this man talking about? If you enjoy this story to this point, tell us where you are watching from in the comments section. The words on the phone felt like a hammer striking my chest. My hand trembled as I held the phone to my ear, unable to comprehend what I had just heard. The man's voice, cold and authoritative, seemed to pierce through the fog of confusion that clouded my mind. You don't know me, he repeated, his tone steady. But I know you. And I know Ethan. You need to listen carefully. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat as I sank down against the wall. The coolness of the hallway air did nothing to calm the heat rising inside me. My thoughts raced, but they couldn't keep up with the gravity of his words. What are you talking about? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Who are you? There was a slight pause on the other end, and then the man replied, I can't explain everything over the phone. But Ethan isn't who he says he is. And tonight you were a pawn in a much bigger game. You've been played. The words echoed in my head, but they didn't make sense. Ethan? Pawn? Played? This couldn't be happening. I'd known Ethan for months. He wasn't like that. He wasn't some manipulative liar. You need to trust me, the man's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. If you want answers, meet me at the old warehouse on West 5th Street in 2 hours. Don't bring anyone. And don't tell Ethan. You'll regret it if you do. The line went dead before I could ask any more questions. I was left there in the quiet of the hallway, alone with my thoughts, the phone still pressed to my ear. My mind was racing, spinning in 1,000 directions, and yet one thought kept repeating itself. Who was this man and what did he know about Ethan? I sat there for a few minutes trying to regain some semblance of composure. The sounds of the party still echoed faintly from inside the penthouse, but they felt distant now, like they belonged to another life. A life that no longer felt real. I stood up and walked back to the elevator, the weight of the decision bearing down on me with every step. Should I go? Should I ignore the call and pretend like nothing happened? I couldn't stop thinking about what had just transpired, Ethan kicking me in front of everyone, his friends standing by doing nothing, the call from the stranger. Something inside me told me that meeting this man was my only chance at uncovering the truth. But the question was, what would I find when I got there? 2 hours later, I stood in front of the old warehouse on West 5th Street, my heart thudding in my chest. The street was eerily quiet, the faint glow of streetlights casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. I had no idea what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. The warehouse loomed in front of me, a hulking, abandoned structure that seemed to swallow the light from the street. Its rusted doors were half open, and I could hear the faint sound of footsteps from within. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The warehouse was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of dust and decay. The tall, empty space stretched out before me, with rows of old crates and boxes scattered about. I could barely make out the silhouette of a man standing in the shadows at the far end of the room. His figure was tall, his posture straight and commanding. As I approached, he stepped forward, revealing himself in the dim light. He was dressed in a black suit, his features sharp and confident, with a look of someone who knew exactly what was going on. I'm glad you came, he said, his voice calm yet urgent. We don't have much time. I hesitated, still unsure whether I should trust this stranger. Who are you? I asked again, my voice trembling slightly. My name is Adam, he replied. I work for let's say a private organization. And I'm here to help you understand what Ethan's been hiding. I felt a chill run down my spine. Private organization? What was going on? I don't understand, I said, my voice faltering. What's he hiding? Why did he kick me like that? Adam took a step closer, his eyes scanning my face as if gauging my reaction. Ethan isn't who you think he is. He's been lying to you from the very beginning. He's part of a much larger scheme, something you've accidentally become a part of. I shook my head, struggling to keep up. What are you talking about? Ethan's not like that. He's kind. He's not a bad person. Adam's expression softened, but there was a sadness in his eyes. I wish that were true. But you need to hear the full story. Ethan's been using you. You're not just some woman he's dating. You're part of something much bigger than you realize. My mind raced, trying to make sense of his words. I don't understand, I whispered. What do you mean? What's this all about? Adam sighed, and his eyes darkened with the weight of the truth. You're the heir to a vast fortune, estates, companies, and a $50 billion inheritance that Ethan has been trying to get his hands on for months. My stomach dropped. The world around me seemed to shift, and I had to steady myself against a nearby crate to keep from collapsing. What? That can't be right, I stammered. I've never heard anything like that before. Adam nodded, his expression grim. You didn't know, did you? Neither did I at first, but your family kept it hidden. They wanted to protect you, keep you out of the mess that's been brewing for years. Ethan, though, he found out. And he's been manipulating you, playing the role of the perfect boyfriend, trying to get close to you so he could gain access to your wealth. I was speechless. This was too much. My mind couldn't process it all. The shock, the betrayal, it was too overwhelming. Ethan had been playing me this entire time, and I hadn't even realized it. But why didn't I know? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? That's a good question, Adam said, his tone softening. Your family had their reasons. But now that Ethan's exposed, it's time for you to take control. You've been living in the shadows of a legacy you never knew about, but it's yours. It's always been yours. I stood there in the dim light, the weight of his words sinking in. A fortune hidden from me. The man I thought I loved playing me like a pawn. And now I had to figure out what to do next. The reality of what Adam had told me hit harder than I ever imagined. The idea that everything Ethan and I had shared was a carefully constructed lie made my head spin. I thought back to all the moments we had together, the laughter, the conversations, the future we had planned. It all seemed so perfect, so real, but now it felt like a cruel illusion. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? I whispered, my voice barely audible as I tried to steady my breath. Why didn't you warn me? Adam's face softened, but his eyes remained steady, unblinking. I couldn't. There were too many pieces, too many people involved. And the truth is, you wouldn't have believed me if I'd told you at the beginning. Ethan is a master manipulator. He's good at hiding the truth, and I didn't want to put you in danger before you were ready. My mind was still reeling, trying to process the idea that my life had been a lie. But one question burned through the fog of confusion. What now? Now we need to stop him, Adam said, as if reading my mind. Ethan's plan is already in motion. He's about to make his move, and if we don't act fast, you'll lose everything, not just the inheritance, but your peace of mind, your security, everything. My heart raced. What do you mean, make his move? Adam paused before answering, his gaze intense. He's planning on marrying you. The moment you say yes, he'll have access to everything, all your assets, your wealth. It'll be too late for you to stop him. My blood ran cold. My hands trembled as the weight of his words sank in. Ethan was about to do what? Marry me? And I thought he loved me? That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about love. It was about control. It was about power, money, and taking everything that belonged to me. I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't allow Ethan to take everything I had worked for, everything I was entitled to. But how could I expose him? How could I stop him now when I was already so deeply involved with him? Adam seemed to read my thoughts. You need to confront him. Get him to confess before it's too late. The longer you wait, the more power he'll have over you. The idea of confronting Ethan terrified me. The man I thought I knew, the one I loved, was now my enemy. I wasn't sure I had the strength to face him, let alone expose him in front of everyone. But what choice did I have? He had to be stopped. How do I do this? I asked, my voice cracking with fear. How do I confront him? Adam placed a hand on my shoulder, offering me a reassuring look. You'll do it in front of everyone. Make him realize that you're not the naive girl he thought you were. You're not his pawn anymore. You have the power. You always have. The next day I knew I had to face him. I couldn't keep running from the truth, no matter how painful it was. I had to take control of my life, my inheritance, and my future. I gathered the strength to call Ethan and ask him to meet me at the same penthouse where he had humiliated me the night before. When I arrived, the atmosphere was completely different. There was no party this time, no loud music or laughter. The penthouse was silent, almost too silent, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Ethan stood by the window looking out over the city. When he turned to face me, his expression was unreadable. But I saw the glint in his eyes, the same one I had seen so many times before, when he was trying to charm his way into getting something he wanted. You wanted to see me? He asked, his voice casual, almost dismissive. Yeah, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I want to know the truth, Ethan. He raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smile. What do you mean, the truth? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I know what you've been doing. I know about the inheritance, about the estate, about everything. You've been using me this whole time. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but it was enough for me to see the crack in his facade. He stepped toward me, his tone suddenly colder. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Ethan, I said, my voice growing stronger. I know everything. You thought I was just some ordinary girl you could manipulate, but you were wrong. I'm not a pawn. I'm the heir to everything you've been after. And now, I'm done letting you use me. He looked taken aback, but only for a moment. You think you know everything? You think I need your money? You've been living in a fantasy world, thinking you could keep your little inheritance hidden forever. But you're just a pawn in a bigger game. Your family has its own secrets, and they're just as guilty as I am. I was taken aback by his words. What do you mean, they're guilty? My family? He laughed, but it was hollow, empty. You really think they were protecting you? They were keeping you in the dark so you wouldn't know what was really going on. But now that you're involved, you're just as much a part of this mess as I am. The pieces began to fall into place, but there was still so much I didn't understand. What are you talking about, Ethan? What game? He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. You'll never know the whole truth. But if you think you can just walk away from this, you're mistaken. You belong to me now. The words stung like a slap to the face, and my heart raced with anger. How could he say that? How could he think he had the right to claim me, to control my life? I don't belong to you, I said, my voice steady now. And I never will. In that moment, everything changed. The fear, the confusion, all of it melted away. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let him have control anymore. I turned to leave, but before I reached the door, I stopped. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about you. I'll expose everything. You won't get away with this. Ethan didn't say anything. He just stood there watching me walk away, his eyes filled with rage and regret. But I didn't care anymore. I was done being his victim. As I walked out of the penthouse and into the bright sunlight, I felt like I had just taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. The weight that had been crushing my chest for so long was finally lifted. But I knew the battle wasn't over. Ethan would try to fight back, but I was ready. The truth had set me free, and now I had the power to control my own destiny. But even as I walked away, one question lingered in my mind. What else was my family hiding? And with that question still hanging in the air, I knew this story was far from over. There was more to uncover, more secrets to be revealed. And I was determined to find out what they were. What are your thoughts on this story? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next twist.